chat. There we go.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to Temporarily Obsessed. I am Walkingkeys, and I am so excited for episode 3. Tonight, we have a very special guy right here joining us. This guy is a musician. He is a creative monster. He's made music for Web3 games, and he's an influencer in Web3 space. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to the one and only Mr. Aftersound. What's up, brother?
What's going on, everybody? Hello. Very excited to be here. Keys, I would just want to congratulate you on the launch of the channel. I'm honored to be one of your first few guests, and I'm looking forward to the conversations tonight, man.
Thank you, buddy. And speaking of one of the first few, Darkest Night is here. He's one of the few here joining us live so far. Darkest Night, big supporter of the channel, and I will be interviewing him sometime very soon. And one of my good dude there. And Tails in the house here.
What's up, Darkest Night? What's up, Tails?
Look at this. We got a good little crew here, and I'm excited to talk to you after sound because we've talked a lot on my other YouTube channel, and we've talked about Splinterlands and Web3 gaming, and really that's where the conversations have stopped. Now, you, Darkest Night, and I have had some awesome conspiracy conversations on your channel. We covered, I think, the moon and JFK, but I want to talk to you and get into the other side of you because I feel like there's so much more that I want to dive into of who is Aftersound, because your music channel on YouTube has an amazing amount of music, some really cool, some stuff that I think is pretty awesome, and you have a pretty large growing fan base, man. So I want to first ask you, number one, really not just what got you into music, but what has kept you into music over the years? Because it's not something at your skill level. You didn't just start. You've been doing this for a while. What has kept you in it?
Well, what's kept me in it, man? It's hard to put this into words, and I'm not trying to be evasive on the question, but you and I have had a lot of conversations offline about just something internally driving you, right? So I don't know how else to say it except I love the creative process of music. I love trying to take something out of nothing. I think it's just a wonderful kind of journey. There's a huge catharsis at the end, and what makes music as an art form fascinating to me is the fact that when you think about like visual arts, for example, people talk about, it's like a blank canvas. Like you imagine something and then you're able to put on a blank canvas. Well, with music, it's slightly different. Like you imagine something and then you put it onto silence, right? Because there's nothing there before. So it's just the idea of like being able to create something out of nothing. How I got into it, well, this would be a fun story, at least considering the gaming background and the gaming conversations you and I have had.
Dude, jump into it.
But if you remember Guitar Hero, and more specifically Rock Band from way back in the 2010s.
Two I remember. Yes, very much so.
Those were the games, specifically Rock Band, that actually got me into music. Now, I'd taken some piano lessons when I was a kid. I hated them. My mom forced it on me. Looking back now, thanks, Mom. But at the time, I absolutely hated them.
Best.
Yeah,
most of the time.
Yeah, at the time I absolutely hated them, and I stopped as soon as she would allow me to. But it kind of set this foundation so that when I started doing getting more interested in music, and it was really first not even producing my own music, I was very fascinated with the production, but really like the recording and engineering, like of an audio engineer, audio producer. So I was in college, I was producing a lot of other bands. I would just record them and kind of learn and cut my teeth on how all that stuff worked. And it really wasn't until, it was around that time that, of course, I started, I picked up guitar and I just started singing with no like lessons or anything like that. But going back, I guess the fun story is with the game Rock Band. So I was in college at the time that it came out, and I remember we were all driving back to campus, lived a couple hours away, and we had played Rock Band over one of our breaks, and it was fantastic, right? I lived with 3 other guys, and so It was the perfect number, the perfect setup. We're all broke college kids, but we looked at each other. We were driving back to campus after a break, and we're like, "Hey, if we all throw down $60, which is a lot at that time,
Yeah.
we can buy the entire game, right? Somebody already had an Xbox, but we can buy the game. We can get everything set up, and that semester was super fun. Now, the odd thing was I've never sung in my life. I mean, outside of maybe doing some like choir stuff way back in like early elementary school.
Yeah.
So singing was just not something that I had even thought about. I didn't play guitar. I'd kind of half forgotten how to play piano at that time. I was excited about playing the drums on Rock Band. That was
Yeah.
the one thing I was like most excited about. So we stop, or, we're driving to campus. On the way, we stop at I think it's a Walmart or something, wherever it was nearby, go in, buy the game, and then we get to campus, and I had to go turn in some things and drop off some stuff. They were setting it up while I was away, and I came back. I called the drums, and when I came back, one of my roommates was like, "Nah, it doesn't matter. You weren't here. You didn't set it up, so
Yeah.
you don't get it." So they hand me the microphone, and they're like, "You have to sing." And I was like, "Sing? What?" I like that. I never even thought about that before. And growing up, I had been much more into hip hop, R&B, just regular pop music. But a lot of the
Yeah.
early songs with Rock Band were very Rock Band focused. We're very rock and roll, or
Yeah.
within that genre. So it was funny because I had to learn these songs. I not only had to learn them, but I had to learn how to sing them well, not because of some kind of ego trip for me or because I love singing, but I literally had to be accurate in hitting the notes in order
Right.
for us to like advance to the next level in a game. And if I didn't do that, and when I wasn't doing that early on, it's like I was the one keeping the band. I was like
You were
holding
holding the
everybody
band
back.
back.
Yeah, and they're like, "Dude, come on." I'm like, "I'm not a singer. What do you expect?" But what's funny is as I went through that process, we Rock Band was just one of those party games, right? So you'd have people coming over all the time, and so people would
Yeah.
come and be like, "Oh man," I'm like, I didn't know that you could sing. I didn't know that you were singing." I'm like, "I'm not." I'm like, "I'm literally just trying to get a 70% so that we can unlock the next level." But that kind of opened up something, and my roommate was learning guitar at the time, so I decided to grab one as well, and kind of the rest is history. Started learning how to play guitar, started learning that's around the time that I was also getting into like audio production as well. And then started posting some cover songs, started writing some songs, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's been quite a journey since then.
That's amazing, dude. And it's so funny and so many parallels to my life, except for one major deviation, which I'll tell you the story in a second. But even I think in music production too, like watching, how the on Rock Band the song is linear, so you're watching it as it progresses,
Mm-hmm.
and you're matching those hits on those beats and stuff. Taking that knowledge and then going to music production, which is very similar. It's linear and it's has those different layers on it. I bet that actually really helped him. I mean, it's amazing that probably Rock Band got you out of your comfort zone to sing, but also probably gave you the basics for production and stuff. Because I mean, I think that's awesome because I have a similar. I mean, what I absolutely love Rock Band and Guitar Hero, dude. Guitar Hero. I was working at a radio station at the time, and I was doing
Mm-hmm.
promotions, and I was like, "Hey, I want to play rock. I want to play Guitar Hero." So what I did was created a package that would like bars would buy into it, so they pay
Mm-hmm.
like $1,000, and then we would bring out Guitar Hero and a DJ and announce that we would be there and doing qualifiers for a big
Oh,
tournament.
fun.
And so we had like Guitar Hero on the big screens. It was awesome. And then we got Rock Band one Christmas and we played it, and I had to sing too, but I
Nice.
wasn't good. I just was able to I could manipulate it to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
But that's when I knew I should never ever sing. So that's, we went similar paths, but you went one way and I went another.
Oh man, I'm sure you
But
could throw it
that's
on some of those songs, especially
oh,
the heavier ones. We got to do
I am.
karaoke sometime. That's what we got to do.
Well, I'm going to see you in a couple weeks,
I
dude.
know. I was just
I cannot
alluding to
wait.
that.
We met a year ago at Splinterfest, which is a
Mm-hmm.
Web3 game that you and I have been playing for a while. And you actually, for this event, it was in Vegas. It was the first time you and I have ever met, and it was awesome to meet you. Got to meet Darkest Night there too. You guys have become pretty good friends of mine, and I'm excited to see you for the second time at Darkest Night's house soon.
Yeah,
But I want to
it's
talk.
hard to believe that was a year ago, but
I
yeah.
know, man. But then again, it's also like, man, it seems like it was much longer ago in some ways.
Yeah, well,
At the pinnacle there.
it's been a long year, that's for sure. But
Yeah.
the cool part is the fact that a lot of the relationships or friendships that I now have were built from that meeting, right, or that
Yeah.
event, which is really cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And
obviously, they're not
and
having another one this year, so it's nice that we're still meeting up.
yeah, and I like how the friendships have transcended the game, and it's pretty cool. And
Hmm.
one thing though, I want to talk about this for a second because at Splinterfest, there was basically a soundtrack that every time I hear certain songs, it takes me right back to that arena at HyperX. It was amazing. All these people that like the same game having a good time, but it was your music that was playing in the background. A lot of it was yours. And even now it's the background to, I think, some of the standard songs on the game, right? Or things that you created.
I've had a hand in some. Most of the stuff that I've done is lore based, though.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so I think I just find that so interesting uh there's a whole new world of music that can be made, and it's growing and growing as more and more
Hmm.
people play games. And what is the process when you go into a song that's based on a game? Because kind of like you said earlier, it's just something that's created, but it's still, something that's it's kind of alive, and you need to kind of when it doesn't jive with the platform, like when it doesn't fit. So how do you
Hmm.
create something that works so well? Because you really did it, man. You hit a home run.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm definitely grateful for the opportunity and the time that I've had doing a lot of this work with Splinterlands. I would say what's been fascinating about it is the ability to almost be completely third party in writing, right? Like I've had some experience writing for other artists in the past where I would do like different types of like licensing work and licensing deals where, it's just like, okay, write for this artist in mind and, we'll pitch it to them or, if they don't take it, we'll pitch it to like pop artists or something like that. And that's always fun, right? But at the same time, it's not like me necessarily, but it's also not really them. I'm trying to get in their headspace, but they're
Right.
just another regular human being that's living in modern day times, 2023, whatever it is. But with this, it was fun because I got to do something that was completely outside of my wheelhouse, where it's like, hey, we're going to give you a lore story, and then we want you to like pretend that you're a bard talking about these tall tales in the game and just create some kind of like ambiance and vibe around it. How would you like lionize some of these people or demonize some of these people in these songs? And so, if you're familiar with the TV show The Witcher, that was actually used, I guess, as an inspiration for the idea, and then I use it as kind of an inspiration for myself, just trying to see how he would approach it, what the types of things that he would sing about. And so it was very cool to almost like be completely emotionally removed from the songwriting process, not in a bad way, but
Right.
in a good way. Because just like, what's the story? What am I trying to tell? It's not about like, it's not about my problems. Where we're talking about like dragons here, right? So it's
Right.
like it's very it tapped into another kind of creative area, which I very much appreciated and enjoyed.
And almost unlimited, right? I mean, there's no, like you said, it's just, hey, here's this story, create a sound to it, put it
Yeah,
in a
yeah.
sound. And like you said earlier, which actually I wrote it down because I thought it was such a badass thing you said. You like when you're doing music, it's like creating something and putting it on silence instead of like a canvas. I thought that was dope. And with this, you're given just a few lines of story and then create a sound around that. That's really interesting. And
Yeah,
and
man.
Witcher was
Thank
your
you.
anchor, right?
I'm
And
sorry.
and what if Witcher was your anchor, kind of give you something to grab onto, but it was an unlimited world. You could really, I mean, it seems like it'd be
Hmm.
kind of freeing to be able to write about, or write music to dragons, and because nobody's ever lived with dragons, it's, you can do whatever the hell you want. So what was that like, man? How did you explore that?
I mean, look, I've enjoyed the fantasy genre ever since I was a young kid.
Yeah.
The Tolkien movie or the Tolkien books, and then the movies, Lord of the Rings. Game of Thrones is something I was heavily into. I mean, I just really enjoy a lot of things within that genre. So I can't say that like I'm a expert on fantasy by any means, but it was fun to be able to step into the shoes of characters that were kind of like analogous to all of the different kind of characters that I've watched and cheered on or cheered against in the
Yeah,
past, and just create something using the, I guess, the musical talents that I've been blessed with in the sense.
that's awesome, man. Now, is there something else that you would like to explore other than the fantasy? Is there any other like genre of gaming or something that you would like to explore as well?
I mean, now that that door or that Pandora's box has been opened, I don't have anything definitive in terms of like what I would like to do, but obviously now every time I'm exploring a new game and I'm thinking through like what how would I be able to tell a story within this, right? Now fantasy
Yeah,
is relatively easy, and part of the thing, I don't want to say easy, but much more, we'll call it low production than something like, let's say, epic sci-fi, right? Where with fantasy, the bard usually just has like one instrument. You just go through and try to play a song that captures a story or an emotion. But it has piqued my interest, especially with a lot of games really digging into other elements of or other genres, I should say.
yeah. Now, I'm a big movie guy. I love watching movies. But one of the things I love doing is rewatching movies and just not really watching them, just putting them on in the background, listening
Hmm.
to the music. And allow the music, the scores to kind of tell the story. So, do you watch movies? Are you a big movie guy as well?
Yeah, love it. I mean, most movies. Like, I don't even know how to answer that question. Yes, I enjoy movies.
All right.
I
Well,
have
I mean,
I have certain genres that I enjoy. I don't watch everything, but I do enjoy
you don't
movies.
like rom-coms and stuff like that? Those are your
I
top
I
choices?
would say, yeah, I'm more of a
I'm just
no, I'm
kidding.
just kidding.
So, are there any like music producers in Hollywood that you really respect and have enjoyed? This is kind of where I'm getting at.
I need Hollywood, or what did you say?
Or like
Any
or any movie scores or Hollywood
oh
music producers that
um again, like I'm gonna go back to it's probably a lame answer, but so many of like these like epic series that we've had. Like
yeah.
I can immediately in my head, I can immediately think of like the melodies for something like Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter or even like Pirates of the Caribbean, right? Them, like as an artist, like as a musician, I can appreciate the fact that they were able to create something that was so memorable that I still remember it, like, years later. I haven't watched any of these movies in probably, some of these movies at least in like a decade. It's been a long time, but you still have that kind of like recall, which is fascinating, and I guess just goes to show how phenomenal it was for them to create
Yeah.
something that was that lasting in terms of, and my memory isn't fantastic either, so for to be able to remember that is pretty cool.
Now, do you think one thing I was talking to my kids the other day, trying to explain, you know, how music can affect their brain, like and how it can actually motivate them or
Hmm.
encourage them or make them anxious or feel tense, and how music even back in ancient times, militaries used drums. Each
Drums, yeah.
each battalion had a drummer which would pound out the beats, and that would be their marching order and how fast they marched. And so it's as humankind, we've had these rhythms and stuff kind of ingrained in us for so long. Do you think? Tell me kind of about your music theory and what you think like the power of music is, and do you think it even has power? But as a
Ooh,
musician, I mean, I have to think that it has some power. You perform live and see how people can,
yeah.
just
You know,
vibrate with you.
for a decent period of my life, I'll say, well, not even decent period of my life. Even now, I'll say this: there's only two drugs that I've ever taken in my life: caffeine and music. And I recently gave up caffeine, or I'm trying this whole decaf thing, but I fully believe in its power to shape someone's emotions. The thing is, I've even started to weaponize it in a way where I can use it or utilize it in a way that is helpful for me, right? If I sense myself just being in like a weird mood or something, I will put on some EDM or something high, high tempo and high energy. So
Mhm.
I understand the power of it. I don't, I can't sit here and say that from a psychological perspective, really break it down, but I do recognize that there's a tremendous power in it. So that comes with a certain level of responsibility, I suppose, if there's power in it,
Mhm.
because it makes me, again, not that it's ever shaped anything that I've done in a very direct way, maybe in indirect ways, but you think about, for example, and I've heard this argument used, and I'm very cognizant of it because I would probably be guilty of it. But you hear, for example, about depression and just people, obviously there's some issues going around now, and you think about how sad some of the songs out there can be. And I love
Yeah.
writing sad songs. I love writing sad songs, right? That to me is like one of my favorite things to do. And so part of it is like, well, if music is so powerful, what are we doing if we're making people sadder? Now, I
Yeah.
try to take the opposite approach because and again, I'm not saying that there's a right or wrong answer here. I think it's just a fun thought experiment because nobody's ever going to be able to like prove this in any tangible way. But the opposite line that I would kind of, or opposite angle that I would approach this with is, uh, and what I love about music in terms of like part of the reason that I wanted to get into it is the ability to connect people through emotion. Like as cheesy as it sounds, like music is the universal language, all that. I think it's fascinating, and I always thought it was fascinating. Kind of growing up and early part of like my music journey was I would hear. I don't know. I'm just going to throw out like John Mayer because I think he's one of the best songwriters out there. For example, right? He's very good at like creating a visual. He's very good at like putting you specifically in his emotions. And love him or hate it, we're not talking about his style of music. We're
Yeah,
just
yeah.
talking about
I
how
mean, you can't
effective
deny
he
his
is.
success. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Just talking about his ability from an analytical perspective to create this kind of mood in this environment. And I always thought it was fascinating because I'm like, man, I didn't date that girl he's talking about. I've never had a relationship like that, right? I've never had my heart broken like that, or I've never broken someone's heart like that. But man, I can feel what this guy is going through, right? I can feel like what he's trying to
Yeah.
convey. And that was always something powerful for me because it wasn't really until I started writing, music myself and then getting, again, it humbles me in the sense that I would get same or similar type of comments where people be like, oh, this thing speaks to me. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, this the way that I
Yeah.
looked up to a lot of like my mentors in music, people or influences in music. I was able to do that for other people. And so I look at that as something that is really powerful at kind of connecting the human spirit in terms of if I can write
Yeah.
something with my background and my upbringing and my perspective on life, and somebody from a completely different part of the world, different demographic can relate to that. I don't know. There's something incredibly powerful about it, and I
Yeah.
haven't quite put my finger on like what I should do about that. And I don't think that I necessarily need to find something to do about it. I just think it's cool, and I think if people can recognize that, makes us realize we're a lot more similar than different in many ways,
Yeah.
especially in times like now.
Yeah. I mean, I think we all share more in common than will ever make us different for sure. And yeah, man, well said there. And real quick, I want to hop into this. We have a question from Mr.
What's
Tales
up,
from the
Tails?
Cryptmancer. As a songwriter, what has been your biggest success and or favorite song?
Oh man, that is that's a great question. Biggest success? That's hard to.
I mean, that's tough because of the
Yeah.
gaming stuff. In my opinion,
Well,
like
I mean,
it's a whole new
yeah.
world.
Well, don't get me wrong. There's plenty of things that I'm proud of. I mean, I've been able to place several songs in like TV shows and commercials, and
Yeah.
that's like part of that. Part of that is like the validation, and also the financial aspect of it. Right? It's pretty cool. Still get residual checks here and there, which is awesome. And that's something that like I look at and I'm like, oh, there's like this whole other world of music which I'm a part of, but at the same time, I don't necessarily like writing for other artists. I like writing for myself. Right? I hit that
Right.
point in my life where I'm like, I feel like I have something to say, or at least I want to say what I'm trying to say.
Right.
Um, so I guess I could look at those as certain successes. I I would really say this, and this is going to be such a cop out answer for you, Tails, but honestly, it's something that I was saying earlier about just being able to get comments from people that who have no idea who I am, right? But they have no idea who I am, what I do, what I represent, anything about me. But it's always like super humbling when somebody like reaches out or somebody comments on like a YouTube video and they're just like, I love this song. This is cool, right? And to me, it's just like one person at a time, in the sense of like, if I'm able to reach one person at a time, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So I would say that that's probably, I don't know if that counts as like a biggest success. Um, in terms of
But
favorite song, it's they're all my babies, man. I don't know if I can pick one. I if you're gonna put me on the spot here, I'll give you a deep cut. There's a
you're
song
on
I
the
wrote.
spot.
Yeah, there's a song I wrote. I don't know, maybe 10, 12 years ago, called "I Wonder," and that was actually I originally released it on a solo album under my name, but then re-released it under the first EP as Aftersound. So it's called "I Wonder."
Nice, dude. Now I gotta find that and put it in the description somehow. Uh Target Night says your album on Spotify is awesome. You guys, check that
Thanks,
out.
Darkest Night.
I need to get some links from you. We'll put those in the description for everybody. Um, Boston foreplay, a long time.
Best song ever, Boston Foreplay. I'm not sure if I'm familiar with that. Are you?
Nope, I thought it may be one of yours that I didn't know. So
No, no, no. I mean,
Supreme,
unless
we appreciate it, but I have no idea what you're talking about. If it's from the band Boston, I'm sorry, I'm unfamiliar.
if it's from the
Uh,
band Augustana with the song called Boston, I know that one, but that doesn't sound like it.
it doesn't. He would probably would have put the name in there.
True, true.
Now, so you said you had a song in a TV show. I didn't know this. Can you tell us what TV show?
So I had some stuff that was done as a promo for Jersey Shore back in the day. So International Jersey Shore.
My man,
Yeah.
dude,
So
I should have put that on the cover photo.
it's like um it's one of those things where again there was a funny moment because I thought that like I totally got ripped off, but it was used in several like international promos for Jersey Shore. And back, I don't know, maybe like 10 something plus years ago, all of a sudden, my Facebook page, so you can tell how old this is, right? Because I don't even use the Facebook page anymore. My Facebook page starts getting hit up with all these people in Europe. And they're all just like, oh, I'm looking for this song. Oh, you're blah, blah, blah. The song is so awesome. I'm like, what is going on here? And
Yeah.
all of a sudden, like, they send me a clip. So I start talking with someone, and I'm like, what are you guys talking about? So they send me a clip of it being used. And I didn't realize that it was actually used as part of like a blanket deal, and therefore like the music supervisor didn't have to contact me directly. It just went through one of the distributors that I worked with. And so because I didn't realize that at the time, I remember I was traveling overseas, and then I was like frantically trying to like connect with my lawyer because I'm just like, do I need to sue these people? Like, they use my music? It's a good thing because people are like reaching out and they're like, oh my God,
Yeah.
I love your song. And, stream count went up, which is fantastic. But, what's interesting about it, and this can maybe lead into something that you and I are both passionate about. It, it just opened up my eyes to how opaque so many things are with legacy industries. And that's kind of, I don't want to say that specifically, but obviously now the fact that I'm much more involved in the Web3 space, I appreciate blockchain technology and the transparency there. It's something that, like, the revolutionizing or the digitizing or Web3ifying, whatever you want to call it, of the music industry is something that I'm really looking forward to and hoping to be a part of.
Yeah, dude. I mean, it is pretty. I mean, gosh, you said a lot there. First of all,
Sorry, I'm giving you a lot.
did you get the money from your music?
I did. There was no there
Okay.
was no funny business. Everything was gravy. It's just
Yeah.
they didn't have to
They just
notify me ahead of time before using it.
they didn't. So they
No, they
didn't.
didn't.
Yeah,
So
nice.
they didn't have to. So they didn't.
Yeah. So did you put up the song for sale immediately to try to get?
It was out already. So it
Yeah.
was out and people were streaming it. And I think by then, Spotify was a lot bigger than like iTunes. So people stopped, the whole like we went digital with music in the early 2000s, and
Yeah.
people thought that was going to be it. Excuse me. And the MP3 era lasted a ridiculously short amount of time compared to so many other technologies. Because you think about like VHS, vinyl, all those were like several maybe decades, but the MP3, like, I think it came out like late 90s or maybe probably early 2000s, and by 2007 or 2008, I think some of the first streaming services were already around.
Yeah. I mean, it's a shame. I used to burn CDs. I had so many CDs, man.
Those are the days. Go
Those
buy
were
a
the
50
days.
pack from Best Buy. Yeah, man.
Oh my! I still have 100 pack over there with like 3 of them taken out,
It's great,
and
man. I make a
you
mix
know,
for you. I make a mix for you.
oh,
It's
I
like how
had
you
so
show
many
love, man.
mixes.
Yeah.
I did, and sent them to my wife or my girlfriend at the time when she would go on a trip. And in the middle of it, hey there, baby. I hope you're having a good ride. It was fun, good times. Uh, so I want to talk about the next evolution, as you're saying. One thing I read today about Best Buy, they are stopping the physical sales of media. So that means Blu-rays, DVDs, CDs, things like that. They're probably going to
Really?
stop that
Okay.
as early as January, um,
Wow. Oh,
which
it's like
is,
one more
is
holiday run in them, huh?
yeah, and then it's a major shift. And like you said, it's all like we've been digital for a while, but we've had physical. Now they're making the big shift to digital. And if you stay in the current form, that means you won't really own anything. You won't have access to it unless that platform gives you access. But if they think you did something wrong, they could shut you down. But with crypto, it is a little bit different. And how do you
Hmm.
see music and like the decentralization of music fit into what you're talking about?
Well, okay. There's
Like,
a
how do you
lot.
see this evolving, do you think?
Yeah. Well, so I think you and I talked briefly about like Justin Bieber's new song. I forgot the name of it, but they
I never
offered.
knew it, but yeah.
Yeah, they offered essentially like 20% ownership to a bunch of NFTs, right? So they did an NFT sale. I think it was like 20 something bucks. So it wasn't that much in the sense of like, if you wanted to have some type of ownership, and then obviously they would pay out over time in streams. And so that to me is what I kind of see the future for music being. There's a level of being able to own a stake in an artist or band or project, similar to how you can do that with pretty much any other project out there right now, starting with Ethereum, right? Not Bitcoin, because I think Bitcoin's more like commodity style. But with Ethereum, you and any of the other coins afterwards, if there's a project, you get sold a vision, you can buy into the vision, and then hold for the long term, trade, sell, whatever the case is.
Right.
So obviously that has become very pervasive into other industries, right? Gaming is something that you and I are very familiar with, but even over the summer or earlier this year, we saw that go into AI. I know that's happening within certain like music projects and such. So I would expect that to become a bigger part. And I personally love it, right? Because then at the end of the day, all royalties are shown transparent on the blockchain. You can tie one stream and show where the royalties are being paid. From a musician standpoint, you talk about the we'll call it like the last half century, or 1950s to the 2000s. There was so much opaqueness, and you hear stories about artists just getting screwed over left and right because there were so many middlemen just dipping their hands into the pot and essentially pulling
Yeah.
something out. So the decentralization of media, we'll call it web 1.0, right? The internet allowed people to be able to reach their fans directly, to connect with their fans directly. Mobile, which is like 2.0, was just made, I guess it's more like a half step, but like Web 3.0 is the digitization of money, right? So now you can have not just ownership, not just exposure to your fans, but you can offer them ownership, stake in what you're trying to do and what you're trying to build. And so I think we're in the very, very early stages of that. I actually find it encouraging that a larger artist such as a Justin Bieber can mess around with that. And I need to follow up and see what the success or failure of that project was. But regardless, I can see many I can see many projects going down that route. And what's fascinating now, and I don't mean to be insensitive to, because I have a lot of friends who are affected by it, but for example, the writer strike in Hollywood, right? People are now talking about, oh, like, AI can do a lot of the writing and blah, 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 all this. I'm not even trying to say that that's where we should go or not, but it does make me think about alternative like funding, right? So if a writer wants to like create something, could they, instead of doing a Kickstarter, launch some kind of project around themselves, an NFT based project that would have full transparency on what's being done? Again, you run the risks that you run the risk of there just being so many scams, similar to what the situation is right now. But I think as you get bigger names coming into it who are much more serious and have a good structure around them, a la someone like a Justin Bieber, somebody that has a reputation to keep up as well, right? That wants to do right by their community. I think that's going to be something that is worth watching and potentially worth getting into.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you said, well said there, man. I think you're right on the money too. That blockchain does allow fans to have assets and hold assets, and even possibly some rights to, major key artists.
Like
One thing,
who's one of your
what's
favorite artists, Keys?
like musically,
Yeah.
um, Jay Z.
All right. So Jay-Z came out with like a new song, or even if he went back and kind of digitized or tokenized, one of his
Yes,
albums, right?
yeah,
Would you buy an NFT that allowed
yes,
you to have a portion of it, right? Because one, it's a flex, a digital flex that you can show you own it. But now you have every added incentive to go out and tell people, yo, stream this song because I make
yeah,
0.0000 back, right? If the
yeah.
more popular the song gets. So I think I don't know how much it's going to impact like legacy artists, but for a lot of the newer artists that are able to adopt this with
Mhm.
growing fan bases, the idea of being like, oh, I knew that guy when he was I knew that band, or I knew that artist when he was like just doing basement shows, right? Well,
Right.
now it's not just being able to say that, it's being able to show it, right? Being able to
Yeah.
show it and then have a financial incentive to like gain as their career progresses and grows.
Yeah, and with things like YouTube and even social media, um, and Spotify and things like that, you have
Mhm,
artists that can make a good living if they grow a little fan base off of payments from YouTube, payments from Spotify, just by having a nice solid fan base. And what the
mhm,
and like you said, it seems like this would be the next evolution of what's been created, because the artists have much more latitude to be, maybe not make it to that supreme level, like the U2s and the
sure, yeah.
major big bands, Red Hot Chili Peppers. I don't know why those two came to my mind first, but
Mhm,
artists have a better chance than ever to make a career out of music by bringing it right to the fans. And if the fans like it, the fans like the content, they'll pay the $5 a month, or they'll stream it or whatever. So
mhm,
it is pretty interesting. And then with crypto, it actually gives a way to give back to the fans, with earnings as they share the music. So I think that's pretty interesting. Now, have you ever heard of Broadside NFT? Uh,
I think from you, just in passing, but I haven't looked into it yet.
yeah, it's just it's a NFT platform or a project that released about 7,000 one of one, generative art profile picture NFTs.
Mhm.
But and each one of them they were unique, and they all had an individual name, so they're all named something different. And if you got one of those NFTs, what it was is it gave you access, and every month they dropped a different chapter to a book, and your character is in the book. That's the character in the book. Is one of the characters. So you combine all the chapters, and you can actually mint a new book from that, and you have the rights to go and sell that, which is really interesting. They're doing another drop, or another one, where on book.io, where you can
Mhm.
actually, everyone that participates gets or everyone that has it gets a percentage of the royalties made from the selling of the book. So I think this is really the next kind of wave for not just music, but just all arts, creative arts.
Sure. Yeah.
Um, and I think it's exciting. Now, with knowing that this is kind of the next evolution and where this is going, Are you considering putting your music out or exploring how to do, maybe some type of ownership or any type of NFT or crypto or blockchain music? Uh, I don't know, connection or anything. Are you
Yeah,
exploring
sure.
that at all?
So I am. I'm actively talking to a couple different projects. That the thing with this is we're just so early that part of it is, and we're seeing this now with a lot of projects, kind of failing in the bear market. It's just like who's going to be around for the long term, right? Because when you set up the infrastructure to distribute through a certain company, they're responsible for collecting royalties on your behalf, and then if you're entrusting them to not just deliver them to you, but to people who own, maybe a
Yeah,
certain NFT or something
16,000
like that.
people. Yeah,
Yeah, so there's a lot of really cool people in the space that I think have the vision for it. Um, I haven't necessarily pulled the trigger because not because I don't trust them, but part of it is like it doesn't feel mature enough yet.
yeah,
And part of yeah, it just doesn't feel mature enough yet. So it's something that I'm actively watching,
yeah,
and I would love to get into. And I do wonder, again, thinking about like the long game, what the scene of, we'll just say, crypto and Web3 in general is going to look like in 2 to 3 years from now, maybe not even that long,
yeah,
because I think many people who kind of follow the Bitcoin 4-year halving cycle have this expectation that we're in for another bull run, right? So in that way, there's a lot of companies that have maybe not thrived, but have survived through the bear market. And I'd be
mhm,
curious to see, okay, who's going to like take full advantage, who was building, and when we do get another turn, who's put themselves in a much better position, right? So
right.
part of it just feels very early right now, but there are a lot of there's a lot of fascinating things happening in the intersection between music and tech. And I know Virus is asking about like AI stuff as well. So I mean, I love all of it. It's fascinating to me, but in terms of this specific not genre, but this specific area, 100%. I would love to do something like that in the future. I just haven't found a partner that I'm fully comfortable with yet.
It's just not there yet. It seems like.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're going to have someone that does some type of distribution. It's not necessarily something you can just go out and do on your own. I mean, that'd be extremely difficult
Yeah.
to figure that out.
I mean, I would say, and I wouldn't call this a prediction, but I'll just say that wouldn't be surprised if during the next bull run or hype cycle, whatever you want to call it, we start to see Apple and Spotify acquire some of these companies, right? As they make
Yeah,
their move further into the blockchain Web3 space. I mean, they're already doing it in bits and pieces here and there, but I would feel probably much more comfortable. I mean, it'd be better to be involved early on, but the moment you see Apple and Spotify, Deezer, Amazon Music, once you see them kind of stepping into the space, and they're not going to go and build something from scratch. I think it'd be easier for them to just acquire a company that's already doing it, and then they're already collecting the royalties, right? So it's just a matter of
yeah,
paying it out.
yeah. I think you're on the money there. You know, I love NFTs. Been in them for almost 5 years now, and outside of a few projects, like Splinterlands is one, Meta Places, Broadside, these
Hmm.
projects that I've just kind of really gravitated to and enjoy. Outside of that, most of my NFT exploration has been with branded stuff for the same reason what you're talking about.
Hmm.
It feels much safer for me to buy a Todd McFarlane Batman on VV than like a board ape. So
Yeah.
um, and I think as the evolution keeps continuing, more of those things will branch out and they'll be more appealing and
Hmm.
safer for a lot of people. And I think you're right on there. And yeah, Virus is talking about AI and AI is a whole different beast. And wanted to kind of get your feel. Do you use AI on a regular basis at all or semi-regular?
Well, but not necessarily for music, but I mean, it's fascinating how much more I will go to Chat GPT than to Google a lot of times. So
Yeah.
I mean, Keys, you and I have talked about AI at length ad nauseum. So
Yeah.
yes, I mean, I do use AI regularly, and I'm trying to find ways in which I can incorporate it further. Virus is asking specifically, what are my thoughts on the ownership of the likeness of your voice? Uh, you know, we're gonna get into some. really sticky areas here. I would say that you probably should still own the likeness of your voice, but it's going to come down to who are the companies that can like adapt the fastest. And so I'm going to give two examples here of two companies that are actually quite successful in their own regard, but YouTube versus Twitch, for example. Like YouTube or YouTube, actually, you know what? YouTube versus Facebook, if you want to throw Facebook and Meta in the mix too. But YouTube found a way to be able to get their algorithm to recognize, right? It was a audio fingerprinting technology to be able to recognize songs, and then they worked with all major distributors. They worked with all indie distributors to recognize these songs and then do a kind of revenue share, right? So you had a bunch of people that started covering songs or they would use songs in their own videos, and you can do that now, right? But YouTube will either share the revenue or they will monetize your video. They won't pay you for it, but they'll pay the owner of the music, right, or the rights holders for the music. So YouTube's actually been fantastic about that, whereas like Meta, Facebook never really did, and I think that's why YouTube has grown much more as a video platform. And then on like the streaming side, not that I mean, I'm sure there's like YouTube versus Twitch, but Twitch actively the DMCA kind of notices that they were sending not last year, but maybe it was a couple of years ago, where they were just really going after anybody with copyright. And they're like, oh, if you've ever played a song ever in your entire history, and we find it, we're going to give you a strike. So people all of a sudden had like videos that were 6 years old, and it would give them a strike. And they had like 3 videos, and all of a sudden they were just getting a bunch of strikes. So a lot of a lot of streamers really didn't like that. And it wasn't just, it just wasn't collaborative with the whole process, right? Like if we can find a way to do that revenue split, then that makes the most sense. And I think that's why YouTube has grown and it's such a leader in so many different aspects. So taking this back to the AI side, I don't know what this looks like in the future, but I will say this: if there is a company that can find a way to give you some kind of residuals back on the likeness of your voice, I think that's what's going to get the highest amount of backing and the most amount of support within, because I don't know. I mean, it's tough. You see, I don't know if you saw, was it George R. Martin and several other authors were starting to sue OpenAI and ChatGPT because you can just go and say, hey, can you write a chapter of a book for me in the style of Game of Thrones?
Right. Yeah. And that's going to be tough to prove, man. Like,
I know.
But I think it's interesting. I mean, I don't think there's a way to get around people using your likeness and your voice. And I actually think we have to be kind of careful. I'm even trying to teach my children that, this stuff is out there because it could be used to fool people in the near future. I mean, heck, it could be used on the news to fool people at this point. It is phenomenal what the technology and how fast it's grown. Do you think that do you think we're ready for AI? I guess that's the question. Do you think as a society we're ready for these things to roll out? Because I mean, ChatGPT is pretty powerful for text, but that's just what we have right now.
Yeah.
I mean, it is 25 times better than it was, in February when I first started it. It is amazing right now. It's connected to the internet now. I can, do custom instructions. I mean, do you think we're ready for it?
So I'm like a human race or technology, optimist.
Yep.
I genuinely think like life overall on average for human beings has only gotten better over time. That's not to say that there aren't bad things happening at this point in time around the world, but just in general, I think technology has added a lot of value to life in general for humans.
Except for those Atlanteans.
Except for those Atlanteans. Well, are they human? I don't know, but
good point. Touche.
I can understand the argument. Okay, so let me try to break this down, and I'll try to steel man both sides, maybe. In one way, I think that like we'll never be ready for it. So in a sense, like every technology or every technological innovation that's happened throughout our history has kind of just been thrust upon us because somebody tinkered around faster than everybody else was.
Yeah.
So in that way, AI is no different. Now, when you have the likes of Elon Musk and a lot of other people in the space, exerting some caution around AI, I can also understand that. So then to come back to your question of like, are we ready as a species? I don't know. I mean, I'm not somebody that like sits here and thinks about like AGI, like artificial general intelligence. Like
Hmm.
I don't worry about it. I feel as though most of the places that I read up on the technology, we're still very, very far away. As cool as something like ChatGPT is, it's like very far away from being self-aware. And then even then, I'm not, I love like AI sci-fi movies, some of my favorites, but I'm not even somebody that thinks like, oh, once AI is here, it's going to be evil and just want to kill
Yeah.
kill the human race. Like, I genuinely I think of AI the same way I think of like aliens. If it's that far ahead, logically, technically, everything, we're just ants to it. And what do we
Yeah.
like? How do people feel about ants? We don't hate them, right? We don't actively try to go and kill and eradicate them, but we just do whatever the hell we want. And I think at that point, yeah, sure. If you want to go down the sci-fi route, yeah, I think AI is just going to do whatever it wants. It's not going to try to kill us. It's just going to be like, nope, like I'm just super advanced and I can do X, Y, Z faster than you can sneeze, right?
Until we get it to play tic-tac-toe like war games, and then we'll,
And
we'll figure it
then
out.
it'll realize
So
that there's no winner.
yeah, dude, I think I mean, great point there. And when the internet came back in the day, and I remember this very clearly, and even a step before that, computers,
Mm-hmm.
because my first computer was like a speak and spell. So I mean, I'm pretty old. So I saw the evolution, and computers really did eliminate thousands of jobs. They just
Sure. Yeah.
disappeared over the next couple of years. But it also created millions of jobs,
Mm-hmm.
new things. I mean, the banking industry exploded once computers became available. The so many different jobs and industries evolved even when the internet hit and it got rolling, things like social media and all those jobs. That's how I got into it, doing social media marketing back in the
Yeah.
day. Um, so I think AI is the next evolution of that, and it's going to wipe out tons of jobs, but it's also going to create maybe not necessarily new jobs, but ways everybody can easily use AI to generate revenue and be able to get them what they need and possibly more than what they would have had before. It's pretty amazing what you can do with AI right now, and
Yeah.
and you and I have talked about it, about trying to figure out ways we can incorporate AI into potential businesses or things like that. Where do you see, like on a broader scale, where do you see like the real opportunity in AI for like emerging businesses or industries right now? Like where do you
Uh,
think, like, let's say you were a billionaire and
yeah.
you were going to invest in, AI is going to radically change the healthcare industry, or radically going to change something else. Where do you see that change happening first, or the
I don't
biggest
know.
change?
I'm not smart enough to answer that question.
I
I would
disagree.
say here's the thing. You go back to like the 90s, pre like internet really becoming a staple in everybody's home.
Hmm.
And sure, like the internet, another technological evolution eliminated a lot of jobs, but then social media manager wasn't a job before, right? You didn't
Hmm.
have all these like, influencer wasn't a job before. So it's like it created all these different types of elements. And I'm not sorry, those are not the best examples, but my point stands
They're
that it's
great
just like,
examples.
yeah, um my point is that it created new types of opportunities. So I'm actually part of the camp that strongly believes in the long term, so many things are going to get commodified, if that's the right word, or just AI is going to replace so many things that are just normal, regular, like as simple as like somebody, whatever it is, to like an analyst, just data analyst, all the way to, I mean, even like doctors, right, and radiologists and stuff like that, where it's just like people go to school, hundreds of thousands of dollars of schooling and in debt to be able to do this. And if an AI can come in, and we just saw, vision for ChatGPT come in, if that can come in and recognize immediately what's going on, it's you talked about healthcare. I didn't necessarily mean to go into healthcare, but yeah, it's going to revolutionize a lot of these industries. And there's a level of greed, and that has such a negative connotation, but that's just the word I can think of right now. When it comes to capitalism, and again, I'm pro capitalism, so that let me not shade this the wrong way, but there's a level of like greed when it comes to saving money, making as much money as possible, right? So in the long term, if innovative solutions are offered to eliminate all these positions, and I'm just going to start with something that I think most of us have seen already. You go to any fast food restaurant and there's those kiosks there, right? So that's just the first wave of it, because that was the easiest thing to do. You're just inputting an order versus telling somebody who's going to input your order for you, right? Or
Right.
or a cashier, where you just go in as like self checkout now. Those are the first waves of it. But as AI becomes way more advanced and can do things like replace certain cogs within the supply chain planning, or within the medical industry, or even law, right? Like, I mean, if it can read through like a law book, and then you give it a certain situation, it gives you all the different angles. It's going to revolutionize all of that, right? So I don't know that it's going to necessarily eliminate all those jobs, but I think it can eliminate a lot of the lower end type of jobs that lead into it, and leave just kind of the managers there. Now, to go back to this, what I was saying earlier was the camp that I'm in, and you'll probably see this with like the content that I do now, is at the end of the day, everybody will have to be their own personal brand. And personal brand has this kind of stigma to it. It's really just, what's your personal brand? It's just your reputation. So
Yeah.
I think a lot of people will start to build businesses or careers around their personal brand. And I think you see that happening very, very obviously on platforms like Twitter or X, right? Or on
Mhm.
YouTube. And so even for myself, right? I mean, I'm doing music, or I have been doing music for the past decade plus. And when I wanted to get into gaming, I just called it Aftersound Gaming, right? Because
Yeah.
I wanted it all to be under one umbrella. Like, it's just two things that I really enjoy. And if I start a cooking or a recipe type of channel, then it'll be Aftersound is Hungry or something. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what it'll be, but like,
I'm in.
now I have this brand that's easy for me to a certain amount of people will recognize it, and I can kind of dive into or delve into any other area. And I think as we move forward, a lot of other people will either realize that or expand upon whatever they're already doing with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's important to know, because it is true. As I mean, you can monetize yourself on Twitter, on Instagram, Facebook, so whatever social media you're using, and you can earn rewards if you put a little time to
Hmm.
it and dedicate, and actually people want to hear what you have to say. Now, if you're boring, no one wants to hear what you have to say, then you got to get a skill and find someone people do want to hear, and figure out how to help them. So, uh, want to talk too real quick about social media itself. Social media is web 2 to the core right now. There's very
Hmm.
few options. Now there are some on Hive. Hive has some really cool social media options on the blockchain, but I think that's one evolution. We're talking about music and NFTs, and having rights to music, being able to monetize yourself and own your own content,
Hmm.
using Web3. That's a whole different ball game. Do you see the power of social media? Do you see them giving up that power, and a Web3
Ooh.
contender kind of coming in place? I mean, I
Um,
have a hard time seeing that. I have a hard time thinking Facebook and those places are going to give up that right now. They may integrate, Twitter might integrate Doge or do something
yeah.
there, but you're still not going to own all your stuff.
Yeah. What's interesting about, I guess, the time and place that we live in, with a lot of like the technological innovations and revolutions that end up happening, it's usually the native builders that can come in and secure a spot for themselves, right?
Mhm.
But we've also never had a situation where, the world is kind of run by like 4 or 5 major tech companies at this point. And so I'd like to believe that with a technological revolution that is crypto, Web3, Bitcoin, it will be a natively built app on there that will come in and just do whatever Facebook and Twitter or X are doing, but do it better, and then offer, ownership and
Right.
tokenization and even rewards. Uh, but at the end of the day, like I said, we've never seen something at the scale of like what uh, a Twitter or X is in terms of its reach, or Facebook Meta in terms of like its infrastructure and capabilities. So you mentioned Hive. Look, Hive is cool, but Hive also has a lot of problems, and it's very
Mhm.
like top heavy, whale dominated. Yes, can you write something on there and not be censored? True, right? And that does have value. But I've seen a lot of people, and I've heard a lot of stories of just people being essentially like, you're downvoted, right? And the whales can come in and just downvote you, so you're not earning anything for your content. So you get on somebody's bad side, and essentially that's what happens. So I don't. I'm not saying that it's impossible. I'm just saying that I haven't seen a version that works.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find other social media, like Web3 social media platforms out there, but
There's not
I
too
think it's
many.
yeah, it's not too many, and I think it's actually really difficult to beat, Facebook, Instagram, and X right now, especially X, because you got Musk coming in with the whole kind of waving the whole like decentralized, maybe not a decentralized flag, but like non uh what's the word I'm looking for here, censorship, right?
Yeah.
So I think you'll get a lot of people that go there, and if he continues to innovate and add to it, it just makes that moat bigger and bigger for a lot of
Yeah.
Web3. But to your point, I can see us going through an evolution where instead of it being a Web3 native platform, we end up getting a Web2 platform that is able to find a way to pivot to Web 2.5, probably never Web 3,
Yeah.
but maybe in our lifetimes Web 2.0 is going to be good enough, or maybe in the next decade Web 2.5 is going to be good enough, right?
Yeah.
So, again, until and unless somebody can come in and build something bigger, I don't know, or bigger and better, I don't see it happening right now.
Yeah. It's funny. I feel the same way, man. I just don't think these guys are going to let go. But if anyone's going to do it, it's probably going to be Elon Musk over there at Twitter or X. And I mean, he's a big Doge fan, and Doge is like a great coin. I mean, there's such a massive supply.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a good coin to integrate. But that'd be, man, how
I mean,
funny would that be? The meme coin, the memeiest meme coin of all time, becomes integrated into a platform, like
I
X.
can 100% see it happening. You know what's funny, as you and I have talked a lot about other macroeconomic forces, inflation and all that. What's crazy about Dogecoin, as stupidly high as its inflation is, it's still predictable and unchangeable,
Mhm.
unlike many other currencies, fiat currencies around the world.
Yeah.
So, I've definitely joined the chorus of like hating on Doge, or not, maybe not hating on it, but just like kind of like laughing it off. But it has something there that is mathematically based, and at the end of the day, you can make an argument that on a long enough time horizon, the inflation there won't even matter. I think it prints like 5 billion tokens per year, right?
It's
Um,
something. It's high.
it's high. So here's the thing. And this might have been my data might be from 2 years ago. So the amount that it prints every year, it's like 5 billion. That doesn't change. And I think at the time there was only like 120 billion tokens for Doge. So somebody correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just trying to throw out numbers here for context. So 120 billion, even let's just say 100 billion. If it's printing 5 billion per year, the inflation rate for that year is 5%. But once we get several years in, like another 20 years, that inflation rate drops down and almost becomes
Yeah.
insignificant in like a couple of decades from now. So again, I'm not saying that I think Doge is going to take over the world, but it is a funny thing to consider, which I think is where Elon was coming from when he's like, the most unlikely outcome is the most like, or the most hilarious outcome is the most likely, or something like that.
Yeah. And I think it's freaking hilarious. And I would love to see him do that. just bring it all full circle.
Yeah.
Man, I tell you, dude, I have thoroughly enjoyed sitting here talking with you. And
Hey, man.
before we get out of here, I do have one question to ask. Do you have any music projects that you're looking to get into, and anything that we can help support along the way, or any projects that you're doing right now?
Any projects that I'm doing right now, I don't have anything to push necessarily. I Because of the stuff that I've been doing with Splinterlands, I took a bit of a step back with my own personal music, but I am hoping to hit. We'll just say I'm hoping to hit 2024 hard with a bunch of new music releases. So I don't have anything necessarily to say more about that at this time, except I'm just enjoying writing and writing and producing again. So hopefully we'll have some cool stuff in a couple months.
Nice. And yeah, something little work going on in the kitchen. I like to hear that.
Ovens in the oven, yeah, or in the slow cooker, we'll call it.
Yeah, yeah, the crock pot.
In the crock pot. It's gonna take a little bit longer then.
Tails says he cannot wait to hear the banger from Aftersound that you're cooking for Rebellion.
Cool,
See,
man.
Tails, I brought that
Can't wait
comment
to.
back.
Yep.
See it? It had the cooking reference. Has the fire for the cooking.
Mm-hmm. We don't need it for a
Are you-
slow cooker, but still,
I
the
mean,
sentiment is there.
yeah, it's hard to put a crock pot on as an emoji and have that translate well.
True.
Well, Aftersound, dude, I truly appreciate you coming and talking. The conversations with you are always interesting, and I really enjoy getting to know more of your background music. And I have to be honest, I really want to play Rock Band when we meet up in a couple weeks.
I don't have it anymore, but if you do, I'm totally down to play. So
It's upstairs.
okay, you got to bring that. Got to bring it.
Oh my
We'll have a good time.
I got to get all the chords together. All right. Well,
Yeah.
guys, I appreciate everybody that hung out in the chat. We had Virus here tonight, Victory, Darkest Night, Tails. You guys are great. Thank you so much. And Aftersound, thank you very much for hanging out and joining Temporarily Obsessed. We'll put your links, all of them, in the description for the replay fam. And thanks again, man. I appreciate it.
Oh man, thank you for having me here. Excited about what you got cooking with Temporarily Obsessed, and looking forward to more, man. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, buddy. And we will be back next Thursday with a live episode.